Tron. If you did not get a chance to see this yesterday, the cards you probably are going to have to look up are Surge Node and Core Tapper.
Yeah, so these are some cards that just let you generate a ton of mana in conjunction with Everflowing Chalice and Astral Cornucopia. Over a few turns, they kind of do the Tron thing where you go, all right, I have 1 mana, I have 2 mana, and I have 30 mana. Look at that. It's perfect.
Kind of talk about each of those cards as they come up. The main component, what you're saying, Everflowing Chalice and Astral Cornucopia are artifacts that tap for mana equal to the number of charge counters on them.
Correct. And then you have things like Core Tapper, Surge Node to put more charge counters on them.
Right. Normally the way those cards are read, you put counters on them by paying a lot of mana up front. But
exactly.
You'll see Lee play them at X equals 0. So they tap for nothing, and then he'll sneak charge counters onto them in other ways to get a lot of extra mana faster than you'd expect.
And there happen to be a lot of other cards in his deck that tend to play nicely with those charge counters as well. Blast Zone, Chalice of the Void. We saw him earlier yesterday do some real fancy stuff with some Chalice of the Voids to slip his own spells through them.
All right, so opponent Ben Nikolich starts out on Faithless Looting, which dumps a Hogak into the graveyard. Here's Stitcher's Supplier. Seeing if he can get a Vengevine as well. He looks like he does not. It dumps a Bloodghast, though. So with a land here, he should be good to make a turn 2 Hogak.
Counting the cards in the graveyard, making sure all his T's are crossed, I's are dotted.
He'll only have turn 2 Hogak. It won't be Hogak and Vengevine.
Sometimes, you know, I hate to be this way, but sometimes you have to settle for 12 power on turn 2 instead of 16.
What a great deck.
See, you know, here you get to get a Dryad Arbor. That's an attacker.
Okay. Why is Dryad Arbor better than another land?
Well, Dryad Arbor is something that can convoke out Hogak. It looks like he is just going to go for the regular land, though.
Because he has 2 creatures already.
Right. He just kind of has that wrapped up and wants to develop his hand more.
Gravecrawler. All 3 will work together to convoke Hogak. He's actually putting an extra mana with the convoke to really preserve cards in his graveyard. You see Faithless Looting and then a land are both left there.
Right. He is going to end up missing a point this way, but if he thinks that he's going to have to cast this Hogak multiple times, it's fine.
All right, here we go. So, second Tron land, and you see that with Expedition Map. You think, oh, that's going to be the whole turn. You would be wrong. Astral Cornucopia on 0, Mox Opal on 0. Here's some extra mana. Here's Core Tapper. He sacrifices it to put 2 charge counters on the Cornucopia and casts Ensnaring Bridge while making turn 3 Tron.
Did you see him
sacrifice
so nice. That Core Tapper and it did not go to the graveyard? He immediately just handed it to Nikolich. He picked it up, pointed at the Cornucopia and said, yeah, you can read it.
Assassin's Trophy means he's still going to take a ton of damage. But normally, I just want to point out that instead of seeing turn 3 Tron, it's turn 3 Tron while putting an Ensnaring Bridge in play in the meantime.
I have good news. We're still going to have 7 mana next turn.
Oh, yeah. We also might not have many life points. We will see.
Well, you know, as long as you have more than 0, life finds a way.
Yeah, most mana wins, right? So he'll need, I believe he has a sideboard copy of Ensnaring Bridge. So Karn the Great Creator, because he can use Cornucopia to pop the map.
Ooh, that's true.
Play the land. That'd be Tron, 8 mana worth of lands. Mox Opal is 9. If he has a Karn, you know, he can make all this work.
Okay, step 1. Crack the map.
Okay. Gets the 3rd Tron piece. And with the speed he's moving, I think he's got something. This is not the way someone who's about to lose looks.
Wow. That Karn is so good at creating things.
The greatest of creators. He'd love to create a Mycosynth Lattice, but I think right now it's going to be Ensnaring Bridge. And it is.
Sometimes you just got to make do.
Second copy. Passes. And with one more turn, Karn's going to find Mycosynth Lattice and end this game.
So he does have 2 cards in his hand, which means this Karn is likely getting attacked down by the small creatures on Nikolich's side of the battlefield.
So 5 points of power. Do you attack down the Karn, or do you go
Easy.
at Lee?
Attack.
Okay.
Attack the Karn.
Faithless Looting from Ben Nikolich.
It might be a little bit greedier, but you could just get completely locked out if Lee were to get something like a Walking Ballista or something to that effect here.
Question I have for Ben Nikolich's deck. We saw the Assassin's Trophy. That is his only main deck way to answer an Ensnaring Bridge. So given that that's the case, maybe you do send
he may
upstairs,
just be priced
right?
into attacking here. Again, you probably send 2 at Karn to put it to 1.
That seems free. It doesn't cost you a turn off the clock,
Right.
and it stops the lattice. I like that.
Or you just kill the card and put Lee to 5 here, and you're still not taking a turn off the clock, but this means the Karn won't get to build a blocker out of Ensnaring Bridge.
But it's hard. There's no way to answer Bridge, and Lee has so much mana that he's going to empty his hand. And that's what we see. Mystic Forge from Lee.
My assumption, if I were on Nikolich's side of the table, would be that McLeod had so many lands in hand because he had the 2 cards he couldn't play off 4 mana the previous turn.
Right.
So that would lead me to believe it's lands, and I would just kind of hope he had more lands.
And I think Lee has done it. I think he's successfully hid behind the Ensnaring Bridge.
So at this point, Nikolich is really just kind of hoping for a copy of Carrion Feeder to be able to bust through this Ensnaring Bridge.
So 1/1, somehow a card gets stuck in Lee's hand. You attack with it, sacrifice everything.
Exactly. Oh, well, this kind of throws it off.
That's a blocker.
Yeah.
Or a tapper. Now the question I have is, how does a card get stuck in Lee's hand? Is it even possible?
If he draws more consecutive lands. Never mind.
Last card's Everflowing Chalice. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Is there a way that he'll draw 2 cards in a turn, maybe?
At this point, it's really hard to say that would be the case. Nothing he has here is really going to draw a card. Mystic Forge lets him play cards off the top. Theoretically, he could Karn and minus it and end up with an extra card in his hand. But outside of that kind of situation, it's hard to imagine that being the case. He doesn't have anything like Chromatic Star or anything to that effect to add too many cards to his hand. He could crack a bunch of Mishra's Baubles, but Lee is not the kind of player to do that.
So I do want to talk just the academic part of this. Lee has set up a lock, which we don't believe Ben Nikolich can break.
Correct.
So at some point, I mean, this is how the deck works. It's a lock deck. Now, at some point, Lee has to win the game. If Ben's not going to make him play that out, most likely. But in theory, how does Lee end a game here once he has a full lock that cannot be broken?
He finds another copy of Karn the Great Creator to get Mycosynth Lattice and just make it to where Nikolich cannot cast any spells at all. And then from there, Walking Ballista seals the deal.
So he has 1 Ballista in his sideboard and 1 in his main. Karn finds a Ballista, slowly puts counters on it. Then eventually there's 14 or 20 and wins.
Slowly.
I guess he has a lot of mana.
Yeah,
it's not
he could
even
have made
slow.
it, what, a 10-10 there or something like that?
Okay, quickly gets a Ballista
Yeah.
ends the game. And first game result in, it is Lee McLeod on Chargetron, up 1-0 on Hogak.
That's impressive with Golgari Depths and Rakdos Reanimator on the back table. Having
they
the
went
prison deck
quicker.
win first. That's a lot.
Well, it's interesting. This Chargetron deck, it feels, so it has these Ensnaring Bridge Mox Opal elements that makes it feel like Urza or something like a prison deck. But at the same time, hold on. I'm going to get to that in a second. I want to point out, it's not just the first game. It's a full sweep for Lee's team in these first game ones.
Backs against the wall for the team of Rosum, Nikolich, and Long. They basically, I guess they could give up 1 more game between them. But after that, they need to win a total of 4 games. 5 games, maybe.
So going back to Lee's deck, I think talking about it as a prison deck feels a bit wrong. It feels, when you talk about it, it feels like a mono-red stompy deck in Legacy, where it's like turn 1 or 2, you make some really annoying 3-mana card that shuts off your opponent's deck, and then about 2 turns later, you make something big to win the game. And, it's like you disrupt on turn 1, you win on turn 3 or 4, and then you hope it never gets to turn 8 because you're probably dead if it does.
Sure. So a lot of what this deck is trying to do in a lot of cases is kind of halfway between Lantern Control and, like you mentioned, those red stompy decks. Because it doesn't quite have the same propensity to just kill someone out of nowhere like the red stompy deck does. Out of those decks, we see things like Goblin Rabblemaster, Chandra, Tortured Defiance, and so on. Whereas we mentioned that Walking Ballista kill before is really the only efficient way that Lee has to deal any sort of actual damage to Nikolich. So we're going to see situations where that game was not literally over that turn, even though it was effectively over. That concession was almost a courtesy from Nikolich.
A win here should put Lee's team into the top 8. With that, they'll be back for the elimination rounds. They'll also gain invitations to the Star City SCGCon Winter coming up in November. If you want to get an invitation to this and find it that top 8ing and open, is not something that is a faraway goal. There's other ways to qualify, and we have the Star City Games Invitational Qualifiers. These are regional tournaments. They're held at local stores. They are cash tournaments, $1,000 in prizes guaranteed to the top 8. And on top of that, the 2 players in the finals of each of these tournaments do qualify for SCGCon Winter.
Yeah, and it's a good way to get ready for it too, right? A lot of times it's kind of hard to find really serious competition if you can't travel to these as consistently as some of the players we see on the tour. This is a great way to kind of get your feet wet in a competitive setting.
Yeah, also additionally, it rewards SCG points, which can help you earn buys at opens if you make it out to our opens. Also, if you play some of these, getting up to 10 points is another way outside of winning one of these to join us at SCGCon Winter.
Yeah, absolutely. Those definitely add up over time.
Find a location, starcitygames.com/IQ. Now, looking at the sideboards, we saw this last time when we covered him yesterday. I actually think this matchup gets worse for Lee once we sideboard.
Yeah, and a lot of the reason for that is, other than, say, Welding Jar, there isn't much else that Lee is gaining out of the sideboard. Most of his sideboard real estate is being occupied by what we refer to as a wish board for Karn the Great Creator to get cards from outside of the game. But then if we look at Nikolich's side of things, we see Force of Vigor, Assassin's Trophy, and possibly even Thoughtseize coming in that are all meant to sort of pick apart the prison that Lee's building.
Force of Vigor, X4, and Nikolich's sideboard. This card from Modern Horizons, to me, has been the most impressive Modern Horizons card of the weekend. Hogak's really good. It's something that for me is just like it's coming onto its own in the metagame.
The other free green spell. Yeah,
that's
what beats it. Okay, sure.
These spells that do really ridiculous things without requiring you to pay mana. I'm pretty into them.
Yeah, the thing about Force of Vigor that's so impressive is usually when we see things like Force of Will, it's card disadvantage. But the fact is, this card is so frequently going to break even on card advantage and put you ahead on a mana advantage. That's so huge.
In this matchup, it's double Vindicate at instant speed for 0 mana. That's a really good Magic card.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's fine.
Nikolich on the play. 2 Bloodghasts into the yard.
Okay. This is a start. This is a strong start.
I see how this works. They might be on the battlefield next turn.
Do you think he's going to pay mana for those Bloodghasts?
No. I don't think so.
But he has to play a second land for it.
So that is similar to paying mana, but I think there is a subtle difference.
How subtle?
Well,
look. Oh,
okay.
I get it, because Dryad Arbor can't cast Bloodghast. Right, that's the difference.
That's the difference.
Sure.
Urza's Tower for Lee. Two Tron pieces for Lee. Makes Mox Opal. Now we see why he didn't crack that bauble. He's trying to make Metalcraft. And we will see Chalice of the Void on 1 to turn on Mox Opal.
That's a great way to turn on a Mox Opal.
Looking at Ben's deck. So what do we have turned off? We have Bloodghast is in play. That's not it. But Carrion Feeder, Stitcher's Supplier, Shriekhorn, Fatal Push, and Faithless Looting.
So one of the things to note here is just that Nikolich didn't actually do anything with his mana that turn, so it's hard to say if this Chalice is even that powerful.
It's powerful enough that Nikolich has decided to use his Force of Vigor, exiling
an Assassin's Trophy. This is big.
Well,
how many reactive cards do you think he has in his hand?
I know, right? Because the card he cares the most about in this matchup is Ensnaring Bridge, and these are 2 answers to Ensnaring Bridge that he's getting rid of to deal with not Ensnaring Bridge.
Right, he may just think that having 5 power in play and a way to deal with an Ensnaring Bridge, or just go under an Ensnaring Bridge, is good enough. Is that 2 Assassin's Trophy in his hand?
Yeah, at least 1 more. You might be right. He has 3 total in the 75, so it could be 2 more copies.
Okay. Are these Assassin's Trophies strip mines?
Oh, is he doing that? No, we saw him get an island last game.
He has an island. Okay, sure.
Now, if Lee were to play the island, I wouldn't be surprised if Nikolich starts going after his mana. And I think Nikolich is really thinking about going at some lands here.
Doing this at sorcery speed's a bit surprising.
Goes for Urza's Mine. You'd want to do it during upkeep in case he draws the Violent?
Right, something like their draw step.
Yeah, during draw.
Right.
Gives him one more chance to... If Lee naturally draws the island, it's a blowout.
Right, it's unlikely to matter.
I can't think of a reason to time it main phase. I think you're right that there's a small edge that Nikolich gave away there.
Right, especially since he's drawing 2 cards because of Mishra's Bauble.
Well, joke's on Nikolich. Lee had 1 mana cards, so thanks for blowing up the Chalice. Now we get to have Surge Node.
Wow, got him.
That's... Yeah, he's reading it. We'll take a look at Surge Node too. Can't believe you're just giving your opponent some Surge
Wow.
Nodes.
What a spew.
Now he's going to put charge counters on any artifact. Mox Opal, boom, charge counter.
Got him.
Mishra's Bauble,
Had it.
charge counter. Shriekhorn from Ben Nikolich.
Surge Node is just the Oprah of charge counters.
You could reload his Shriekhorn with it. Let me check. Shriekhorn, yeah, those are charge counters.
Oh, they are charge counters.
Oh, yeah.
I guess it could definitely... Would it be that shocking for it to be like a fire counter or something weird like that?
A trash counter. Right, because it's dumping things. Yeah, Shriekhorn is shooting fire. I'm looking at the art here. It's got skulls coming out of the fire, though, so maybe it's like some demonic fire, something like that.
Well, maybe it's a crematorium horn.
Ooh. I think it's
that sounds like the name of like a really brutal metal
Right.
band. Crematorium horn. Coming to Warp Tour near you. Uh-oh. I think that was a core tapper off top. All these counters and nowhere to put them.
Oh my goodness. Counters everywhere, and not a chalice to tap.
As soon as an Astral Cornucopia shows up, it is over for Nikolich.
Lee will have all the mana. Just instantly 4 charge counters on the Cornucopia.
Call that a ritual.
I guess in line with the name, Shriekhorn is shooting screams out of it. That's what's going on with the...
Oh!
Right.
Yeah, that does... Those are what those words mean.
Yeah.
Huh.
I sometimes do that with Magic cards, where I learn the name of the card without actually thinking about the
Oh,
words.
is that a Vengevine and a Hogak off the
Oh,
Satyr
okay.
Wayfinder?
Oh, hey, the Hogak deck's doing its thing, and that could be a lot of damage.
Core Tapper is not an adequate blocker.
It is a 1-1, and now we're going to see some work from Nikolich. So, Satyr Wayfinder, you mentioned, milled over Hogak and Vengevine. Land gets back Bloodghast.
Ooh.
Now some convoking from these creatures. That's going to convoke Hogak. Oh, does he have to exile the Vengevine? That would be so sad.
What? 1, 2, 3. He could probably just tap an extra Bloodghast.
Okay.
Or he has one in his hand. And
And he exiles the...
Right.
That's what happens. Okay. Yeah, and that's what he'll do. Hogak gets back Vengevine. And Lee, if he has a Ensnaring Bridge to find, he's got about 1 turn to do it. Takes 8, goes to 4.
He has to play some cards out of his hand here, too.
I believe another Surge Node was the draw.
Well, allow me to just say,
I like Surge Node in core tap.
that ain't
However,
it, Chief.
And picks him up. So Ben Nikolich evens things out 1 game apiece.
Not going to give this top
Wow.
8 up without a fight.
You know, Core Tapper could have end step put a 7th counter on Surge Node, and it just didn't happen. Wow.
These are the kinds of edges that make you lose games and win innings.
Yeah.
The pressure just
It
gets to you sometimes.
Yeah, you forget to put the 7th counter on Surge Node. You never know when Surge Node's going to run out of counters.
Never know.
Nikolich's teammate, David Long, rallying as well. He takes the first sideboard game over Colin's Mullen. Do you think a Surge Node has ever run out of counters in a game of Modern?
I have watched one Samuel Black
Use all
run
6 of
out
them?
of counters on a Surge Node. So here, now that Lee's back on the play, his Chalice of the Voids are actually going to be so much better than they were previously. He's actually, if he has one of his Mox Opal draws with a bunch of 0-drop artifacts, he might even play a Chalice of the Void before Nikolich is able to cast his first Faithless Looting.
So wait, turn 1, right, you need a 0, a Mox Opal, a Chalice. So Chalice of the Void, Mox Opal, some other 0, 2 mana, make a core tapper. How do you get the Chalice on 1? I guess you just tap 2 mana. You can
just play. Yeah, you can just play like a 0 mana, like Astral Cornucopia or Everflowing Chalice.
I was getting too fancy. I was thinking how to do it with core tapper and forgot you can just pay 2 mana for Chalice.
You could do it with a Surge Node as well. If you go land,
Opal,
tap 1 for Surge Node, Chalice on 0, tap Opal, Surge Node,
so
counter on Chalice.
So instead of paying 2 for Chalice on 1, I make Chalice on 0 and pay 2 to Surge Node it to 1.
There you go.
That's just fancy play syndrome. I love it too. Well, wait, no, actually, you do make it that way because then the Surge Node's on the table.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, it's actually right and fancy. Oh, my favorite thing. I like it when the fancy pants plays the correct one.
Yeah, that's not surprising from the guy who invented Amulet Titan.
Yeah, I want to make good plays and have them as convoluted as possible.
Pretty sure you were just sitting in a PT testing us going, yeah, but if there's an Amulet of Vigor on the table and my Primeval Titan gets these cards and, 45 minutes later you said the end of the turn.
Look, you have to look someone who's a pro Magic player in the eye and say, no, it's correct to get Sunhome Fortress of the Legion here.
You know what? I think we should play 2 Simian Spirit Guides. Any more is overboard.
Look. That was about right. Is this the turn 1 Chalice?
That's how you do it.
Wow, just how we drew it up.
Just like we said.
So 0 mana Chalice,
seen this coming?
0 mana Mox Opal. Here's Surge Node, Metalcraft. Surge Node transfers the counter onto Chalice of the Void.
Is there a Force of Vigor coming from Nikolich?
Oh, that would be so sad. No. We worked so hard. I would just look at my phone and say, please let me have this. Look, I registered the deck just to make this happen. Please don't blow them up.
I have 10 wins in a tournament with Surge Node. Come on.
It's the front card in Nikolich's hand.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you don't go, hold on, I might have effects.
He says, yeah, that's fine. You have it. And now they're all going to go away. You probably leave him with the Surge Node, right? You don't. I think you hit the other 2. He's talking with his teammates.
I might leave him with the Mox Opal. Yeah. How far away is this Mox Opal from doing anything?
Put a counter on the Mox Opal in response. Thank you. Boom.
Whoa.
That's a nice Mox Opal.
Okay. There we go. Tightening up.
Yeah. This is better than other Mox Opals because it has a charge counter.
I'm not like other Mox Opals.
Faithless Looting for Nikolich. Now it's his turn to get things rolling. Another Force of Vigor picked up. Oh, no. Oh, gosh. This sideboard card is really hard to beat. Update, Jeremy Bertarioni picks up the win on Standard. If Lee can salvage this game, it'll send them to the top 8. Second Tron piece, Mishra's Bauble.
Okay. This is a way in this game.
It's a way in.
It felt like a blowout last turn, but we did see one of those resources just get used on a Surge Node.
And you see Lee not really caring about the Mox Opal either. He sacrifices the Bauble, so keeping himself off Metalcraft.
He may just think Tron is his way in the game at this point. This is the upside of getting to play these lands in a deck where you don't even need to commit a ton of resources like Sylvan Scrying into making them happen.
Yeah, I think that's right. Because your opponent has Force of Vigor in the deck, and I believe another one in his hand, just getting the right artifacts isn't going to work. I'm looking at the Planeswalkers to win the game. Karn the Great Creator has to be his way to win.
Think of it this way. If this Mishra's Bauble draws a land, that's basically the same thing having an active Mox Opal is going to do. It just doesn't play into Force of Vigor or anything like that in the same way. So you might as well just go for the play with a bit more upside, especially if you don't have another land drop in your hand. He also, it looks like he only has 2 cards in his hand, so putting all the resources into making a Mox Opal active may actually just be too tall of an order at this point.
Satyr Wayfinder from Nikolich, if he flips over a Hogak.
Oh, that's a Vengevine.
All right. Did he get a land off it? He did not. No, just milled for 4. Beats. Is there a Hogak? No, not even a Hogak.
Dang, most people have to pay mana for Entomb, and this one you got a 1/1 as well.
We just don't get a free 8/8. There's just no
Why
justice.
do people even play this deck?
You watch this deck for long enough.
The second card down was the 3rd Tron piece.
Okay, 7 mana. Now what's the payoff? 3 for Ensnaring Bridge.
That's a start.
Yeah,
that's one of the cards here. This is why you play the deck.
This will get, if there's another Force of Vigor, it'll get the Force of Vigor out of Nikolich's hand. Nikolich will probably wait until he has something bigger. And Lee, just the other 2 cards as Mox Opals, just dumps them out of the hand.
All right.
Wisely keeping the one with the charge counter on the battlefield.
Gotta play to your outs.
As we covered, it is better than the other Mox Opals.
Well, it's not like them. It is different.
I always like when I play Magic on Magic Online, and one of my cards is foil, and the other 2 aren't. You know when they thought seize you, they 10 out of 10 times take your foil. Because they know.
They know
it's better.
I'm the respectful type to not. But
No,
I tell them.
That doesn't even exist.
Them. I literally will type or tell the person tell them in person.
Please no.
You paid extra for that. I'll even let you keep it, and then point at the other one with the Thoughtseize.
Everflowing Chalice on 3 from Lee. And there we go. Force of Vigor pitching a 3rd Force of Vigor. I wonder whether that was a bit hasty on Nikolich's side. You can keep a Force of Vigor, pitch something else. Or does he just have the 4th one?
He wants to start attacking.
No, he just has the 4th one in his hand. No, that's actually it.
Why wouldn't he?
I was going to say wait till you have a different green card or the 4th mana, because Lee is not doing anything. But my mistake, he just has the 4th one.
Bright side, this Carrion Feeder off the top, we're going to really get things going here.
So Carrion Feeder Gravecrawler is a nice combo. The Carrion Feeder gets big.
Stop me if you've heard this one before.
I shall cast this Gravecrawler from my graveyard as I have this other zombie. You hear that one a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So a swing here for 7, Vengevine coming back. Another last card in Ben Nikolich's hand is a Gravecrawler. So I was wrong, it's not the last Force of Vigor.
So Lee's not out of this game. If he rips a Karn the Great Creator or a Bridge, both of those get him back in.
Says go. No, I think he has to do it. Does he have to do it this turn?
I think this is death.
2, 4.
I think he's dead.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12. But you can use the 3 black mana to make it 13.
To make it 1 more point of damage. You effectively give a Gravecrawler Summoning Sickness, but you sacrifice 2 damage for 3 damage.
Yeah, and if we have it counted outright, I think that's Lee's life total.
Yeah, 4, 5, 6, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yep.
So it's exact.
Wanting to do all the math. I guess you could do 14 if you sack it a 4th time, but splitting hairs and all that.
1, 2. Oh, right.
Oh,
we get to sack the Vengevine too, right?
Yeah.
I like Vengevine in the mix is more damage. Oh, this is fair. Let's just not pay for spells, 3. This is going to be good enough. Yep, second creature of the turn brought back Vengevine. Sacrifice the Summoning Sick Gravecrawler. Cast it, do it 1 more time. So you're going to have 6 from the feeder. The Vengevine makes 10. The Gravecrawler and Wayfinder make 13, and an extra 2 from Bloodghast just in case.
Should be 5 counters on the Carrion Feeder and 0 life for Lee.
And that's the handshake. So Ben Nikolich keeps his team alive, which sends it over to the legacy table to decide which team will be moving on to the top 8. David Long and Collins Mullen doing battle.
This Rakdos Reanimator deck's been getting a lot of love this weekend. We saw it get taken down earlier. I don't know if we've seen it win yet. But it's on the play now.
And this is the kind of matchup where I like it.
I think it's great in this matchup, especially since Long kind of has a slightly slower version of the Depths deck, where it's a little bit more grindy with Elvish Reclaimers.
Yeah, you're playing Black-Red, Rakdos Reanimator. That's a deck that's trying to do things on turn 1, and your opponent does not register Force of Will.
Right, and if Collins is able to just get something like a Tidespout Tyrant, that card's almost unbeatable.
Absolutely. I like Collins here. We'll see whether or not it plays out that way. So game 3 puts Collins on the play. He took game 1. Chancellor of the Annex was a pre-game reveal right before we came down here. So there is a Chancellor trigger waiting for David's first spell.
If we get there.
Or do we just Thoughtseize ourselves?
Unmask, but yeah.
Okay, unmask yourself. Discarding Gristlebrand. Dark Ritual into Animate Dead. Okay, so this is what happens when you don't register Force of Will, is your opponents do things like this.
Yep, Surgical Extraction couldn't even have saved long here because of that Chancellor.
That's neat. So you need 2 Surgicals to beat this?
Yeah, no big... That's, that's Surgical Black card. That's like a Force of Will. Same thing.
When does Dave have Force of Vigor?
Well, also, to be fair, Surgical plus Force of Vigor would have beaten this.
Right.
If you Force of Vigor the Animate Dead with the trigger on the stack.
Yeah. Dave does not have Force of Vigor. He has 3 Surgicals. So he would have needed 2 in his opening hand to fight back here.
I'm just still high on Force of Vigor, even if it's not in his deck. Maybe it should have been.
I am all about that card.
0 mana is so much less than 1.
It won Ben both the sideboard games.
Yeah, and it wasn't close.
So now Gristlebrand draws 7. We'll see whether Long gets a turn. This when both Legacy players play non-blue decks in Legacy, this sort of stuff starts to happen.
It's hard to imagine that Collins doesn't just go to 5 here.
What's the risk?
Deck doesn't deal fair chunks of damage very frequently. It's usually going to be dealing 20 damage or no damage, and especially when there's a 6/7 flying lifelink creature, you don't have to worry about the Vampire Hexmage beatdown plan.
So down to 5 goes Collins, draws a fistful of cards.
Likely looking for a Lotus Petal in order to keep going here. We can see Dark Rituals peeking out of his hand.
So Dark Ritual brings him up to 3 black mana.
Oh, he did have an extra black floating, didn't he?
He still did. So the idea is to somehow get a Chancellor in play? Is that right?
Right. That way you just end up force spiking every single spell your opponent plays, on top of the one that's kind of still waiting.
Up to 5 black we go. Suppose he could Thoughtseize, Animate Dead. Yeah, that's what he's looking toward.
Looks like there's an Entomb hiding out in hand as well.
Some powerful magic here being played by Collins. That might be enough to send them to the finals. Ashen Rider. Well, you don't want to get that. There's nothing to Ashen Rider let. You haven't given your opponent a turn.
Probably just going to look at the Chancellor to just seal things off. But something like Grave Titan is also going to effectively lock it up.
Interesting one.
Magus of the Moon. How about that?
That's not particularly beatable. Magus of the Moon. I was looking other things in his sideboard. He has Archetype of Endurance as well. Elish Norn and Iona. But yeah, Magus of the Moon I think plays here.
Yeah, that one's pretty good against the land-based combo stratagem.
Dave Long he plays 2 basics.
Does he have a Dismember? Let's check for that one.
No.
I was going to say if he had a Dismember, he could theoretically play a Dark Depths with no counters on it and then Dismember the Magus of the Moon.
I like the Thoughtseize here on David. Mox Diamond, Thoughtseize, little Elvish Reclaimer.
Allow me to say, that's not going to do it.
Yep. Mox Diamond gone. Exhume down to 1 mana, brings back Magus of the Moon. And that is a pretty powerful turn 1.
And, we don't have the table mic'd or anything, but if I were in Colin's chair, I imagine something to the effect of, you may play your first land now, would be said.
Yeah, he has to discard 3 more cards before he says that.
Or, excuse me, and, all right, first land coming.
David will play a mountain. And this should wrap it up pretty quick. Lotus Petal, We have another Animate Dead in Collins' hand. He can get that Chancellor he's discarded. Don't believe Dave is going to resolve a spell. And he'll go for Exhume on the Chancellor. Dave's cards cost 1 more. He picks up a card.
And will he pick up the other 2 cards?
And that's going to do it. Collins with the win. Collins, Mullen, Lee McLeod, and Jeremy Bertarioni win and advance to the top 8.